Now at 10, this is Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
East Hartford police say a 53-year-old cold case has finally come to an end. Thanks for joining us for the Fox 61 News at 10. I'm Brent Harden.
And I'm Sarah Sanchez. Police arrested George Legier. They believe he killed a 21-year-old woman in October of 1973. Officials hope this major break in the case will bring closure to the victim's family. Fox 61's Valerie Moravi has the details.
Jeanette Couture's family waited 5 decades for answers. Now police say new evidence in the case is all they needed to arrest the man who was a suspect all along. Investigators called it a brutal murder. 21-year-old Jeanette Couture was found dead in her apartment at 150 Cannon Road in East Hartford on October 13th of 1973. Police say she was home alone at the time and the suspect entered through a window. She was later found naked with her hands bound behind her back and with her head covered with a pillowcase. Officials say Couture was stabbed multiple times with a large kitchen knife. For years, the case was cold. And after re-examining and following leads for 5 decades, on Wednesday, detectives say they arrested 77-year-old George Legier for Couture's murder.
I couldn't believe it at first, to think that it happened in East Hartford of all places. And it happened so long ago and it finally got answers.
Ariana Castro is 21 years old and also lives on Cannon Road. She says she feels a sense of relief that this chapter is closed for a family who needed answers.
I'm also 21, and to think she got killed around that time, it feels a little scary for me as a young woman.
Police say Legier was their main suspect on Couture's murder from day one, but there was no enough evidence at the time to make an arrest. Investigators say a major breakthrough came in 2021 when the Avon Police Department arrested Legier for kidnapping a woman in a separate 1984 cold case. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison at McDowell Walker Correctional Institution. Police added that Legier was also connected to other assaults similar to Couture's murder dating back to the 60s.
I definitely feel grateful that we as a community and the family gets peace knowing who did it, and we get answers. Because even though it was so long ago, I think they still deserve it, you know?
Now, if you have any information about this case, you can contact East Hartford Police or Connecticut Cold Case Unit. In East Hartford, Valerie Moravi, Fox 61.
All right, time for a first look at the weather here. We had a wet afternoon on this Thursday. In fact, it's been a soggy couple of days here, but we are looking forward to a drier weekend.
Yeah, it looks like temperatures next week are going to return to summer-like conditions during the day. Let's check in with meteorologist Sam Samperi. So, Sam, is our Friday bringing us any more rain?
No, we are going to dry out very nicely just in time for your Friday. And part of the weekend, there's been some changes on the weekend, but I'll get to that later in the newscast. Meanwhile, right now, Live Doppler is showing one last band of showers rolling on by. Actually, the modeling was a little bit too much before. It's showing a much more heavier rain. So this is the last of it, right up here through East Heartland, going up to Massachusetts and back through Norfolk. Across western Litchfield County. Put it into motion, you can see this is about it. It's breaking apart, but it is moving along pretty good now. So we're going to be clearing out. Temperatures right now in the upper 60s to lower 70s. Still very mild and humid out there, feeling more like August than September. Look at these dew points. Very summery out there, upper 60s to near 70s. Winds are starting to turn in western Connecticut. That's the leading edge of drier air moving in. This will be moving on out and then partial clearing overnight. Temperatures will be bottoming out into the 60s. A little bit damp to start, but for the school bus, a nice warm finish with highs in the mid to upper 70s in the Big E. Mid to upper 70s everywhere across Connecticut. Is going to enjoy Friday. I'll have more details on the weekend forecast in a few minutes. Brent and Sarah?
Sounds good, Sam. Thank you. Well, the father of 2 young boys who were beaten with a metal bat has filed a lawsuit against the state. The 6-year-old boy died and his 4-year-old brother was seriously hurt. Police say 38-year-old Abdul Rahim Suleiman beat the boys and their mother at an apartment building in Bridgeport last October. In the lawsuit, the boys' father says the state failed to protect them despite having knowledge of Suleiman's history of violence. At the time, Suleiman was already on probation for prior offenses. Well, after they survive the unthinkable, some sexual assault victims are then denied a job or even a place to live.
A new law will go into effect next week, and it gives survivors of sexual assault and trafficking new protections.
Fox 61's Annette Montgomery lays out what those protections are.
Housing, credit, jobs, those are just three of the areas survivors of sexual assault and trafficking will now have protections under starting October 1st. For advocates, it's been a long time coming, but they're glad it's happening now. Starting October 1st, sexual assault and human trafficking survivors in Connecticut will be recognized as a protected class under state anti-discrimination law.
Prior to the passage of this recent legislation, it was only victims of domestic violence that had those protections.
That means for the first time, these survivors will have legal protection against being denied housing, employment, or even credit because of what they've survived.
So for many survivors, it takes, some time to get back to a sense of normalcy if that's possible. And so in that time in between, this allows survivors to do everything they need to take care of themselves, but to ensure that they have some sense of security, that they won't lose things like jobs or other things like that, in the meantime, as they again heal and seek justice.
The timing is crucial. Just this week, Hartford police announced the arrest of 7 men in connection with a months-long trafficking investigation of 3 victims. So Beth Hamilton, the executive director of the Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence, says this law couldn't come at a more urgent time.
Interestingly, what we've seen overall is that violent crimes are down with the exception of sexual violence.
While that number is rising, so is the support for survivors. This law doesn't just protect them, but also requires communities and workplaces to step up.
It also requires employers with 3 or more employees to post notifications at their places of business to ensure that survivors have access to victim services. So again, the great thing about the legislation is not just that it affords those protections for survivors, but the whole community.
The Connecticut Regionalized Human Trafficking Task Force says just from 2022 to 2024, they've seen a 200% increase in the number of human trafficking investigations in the state. In Hartford, Annette Montgomery, Fox 61.
Another law to protect sexual assault survivors will also go into effect October 1st, and this one deals with sexual assault kits. Currently under Connecticut state law, survivors have 2 options for having their assault kits collected. 1, file a police report and then it is sent to a lab, or 2, decide not to file a police report and the kit and the DNA it contains is never tested. Well, now a third pathway will open up when Beth Hamilton, the executive director for the Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence, calls a win for the state.
There's now an identified pathway, meaning that I don't have to report to police, but I can still choose to have that kit tested. And so we're really excited that what this legislation does is it allows survivors to decide when, how, and if they want to interact with law enforcement, but it doesn't prevent them from getting information about a crime that was committed against them.
Now, Hamilton says for some survivors, they still need time, space, and the ability to think through if and when is the right time to report their sexual assault to police. Hamilton also added that here in Connecticut, survivors are able to track their sexual assault kits once they are collected, so they can see when it arrives at the lab and when it's tested and if there is a DNA match to a suspect.
Waterbury officials say water has been fully restored after a water main break on Huntington Avenue. The mayor says some homes and businesses might notice some discolored water, so there is still a boil water advisory in place right now. The city collected water samples this morning. Testing takes about 24 hours, so they'll have results by tomorrow night. City work crews will keep making repairs through the weekend. The mayor says a temporary bypass is in place so people will have access to water.
I just truly believe that when we talk about housing, we need to talk about also housing that's affordable and housing that will help folks who have families who are homeless with them.
As we enter into the cold months, some advocates are pushing for more housing for veterans.
Fox 61's Kay Pattyfoot has more on what they're calling on lawmakers to do.
Well, there are a number of programs and assistance for veterans in our state. Some say there should be more housing options for veterans, especially from developments that are federally and state funded.
No veteran should be homeless. No veteran. no veteran should be homeless.
In Connecticut, the Department of Housing and Urban Development estimates there are 174 veterans who are homeless, and 25,777 veterans live in homes with one or more major problems of quality. Stephen Harris, a veteran who served in the Vietnam War, and Bridget Prince, who served in the Lebanon and Grenada conflicts, say that's not okay.
I hear people say, when they find out that I'm a vet, you know, they say, welcome home. And I appreciate it, we all do. But I also would appreciate if folks would understand that you got veterans living in the park. You got veterans living under bridges.
This issue hits close to home for Prince. The housing complex, Veterans Terrace in East Hartford, is where her uncle, Private First Class James Jackson, raised his family. Now that complex is getting redone with the help of state funds. She's calling on lawmakers and developers to make units available in complexes like Veterans Terrace for vets.
If our state funds are financing this, please set aside 10% of the units for veterans, and not only set aside the units, but have them available so veterans can afford them, meaning that you will rent to them based on their income.
Some towns do offer these kinds of housing, but Harris and Prince say it's not enough. Harris says Hartford has a lot of abandoned buildings that can be used for housing for veterans.
There's a hospital, the old McCook Hospital on Vine and Vine Street. It's been vacant now for God knows, forever it seems like. And I've been, along with a group of other people, have been trying to get that site for homeless veterans and their families.
Prince says because veterans give and do so much for our country, they should always be supported.
It's a small ask. I think it's the least that can be done is for the government to allow us to live in housing complexes that they support financially. And that they're building.
Veterans Day is November 11th, and both Prince and Harris say one way to honor veterans is to help them with housing. In Hartford, Kay Patty Foote, Fox 61.